let's do it, and let's give George the ground to do it on. So, you know, you designate an area of the gardens which weren't really being used for anything else specific other than being a nice piece of grass. And it happens. Sadly, I don't have the thing I should have done at the weekend had I really been organised, was go out and do a wonderful photo essay of this thing. But if you don't know it, does everybody know this work? If you don't know it, please walk up to Regent Road, walk into the gardens and have a wee wander round and a wee thought, because that's what it's about. It's a place. George is very metaphysical, and it's very much about just being there and thinking of the condition of Scotland. And of course, it does actually connect back to the original history of parliaments, which were in stone circles or on mounds. So it's a very sort of, you know, it's almost a retrieval of a Neolithic idea through the filter of a great Scottish poet and a great Scottish artist, facilitated for the city of Edinburgh, and it's one of the best and least known works of art in this whole city, and well worth a visit. And so we come via Paul Hogarth's nice drawing, and that's the other thing, Paul put in a lot of work on this, because you have to do drawings like that if you're going through the council. To my return to the RIS, as John said, 2007, so I've been back there. It's not quite 4 years. It will be by the end of this year, and doing all sorts of different things on behalf of the incorporation, but always observing that Latin motto, which I'm sure all of you will agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment contained in Opera Nostrarum Manum Dirigi, which I really feel gets to the heart of matters, and I'll tell you later. Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from you?
Go on, tell us what it means.
You're appalling. You should know that.
I know I should know.
It should be inscribed in your heart. You're a fellow of the incorporation. It means our works are guided by his hand. And I've always said, if you're in the RIS buildings, our works are guided by Robert Roland Anderson's hand. You know, it's not necessarily the big man up there, it's the big man who set up the whole deal and has steered it to the present day. But that's what Opera Nostrarum Manum Dirigi. My predecessor actually, bless her, dumped the crest. But I think if you've got a crest that looks like that was drawn in 1922 by John Keppie, you should keep it. You know, it's a bit old-fashioned, but it's quite nice. And we play with it a lot. So there you go. We're allowed to play with it, the members have to leave it, and it's sacrosanct. They're not allowed to tamper with it, but we fool around with it and do graphical devices. But there you go. Any other questions? It's good that I dumbfounded all of you. Obviously I didn't say anything of any particular relevance. You asked me to be controversial, I obviously wasn't. So.
No questions?
Martin? In terms of what you described, Neil, you've been kind of fairly sanguine about perhaps some of the things that were quite disappointing in terms of, you know, the early slides and in terms of things coming to an end. And
I have to say, I did love being sacked by the Edinburgh Academy. It was just, you go, what? How? And they withdrew. We printed all these bloody things. They were actually approved by the client, by the immediate client. And then they were printed and distributed. And then horror. And in fact, there's another story, and we slightly got the blame because they didn't listen to our very good advice on this one. I got a panic phone call, and I think it was a sort of Friday afternoon, and 2 Edinburgh Academy boys had been seen and photographed, this is not as bad as it sounds, it's headed, in a cafe in Stockbridge, exchanging drugs. And this was going to break in the Sunday papers. So I get a phone call, you know, using my PR head, would I please advise? And I said, do nothing at all. No, we want a court injunction, we want to stop this, and you know, it's appalling. And I said, look, you've got 2 boys, what was the cafe? It was the Blue Parrot or something down the stair. And I said, it's dark. Were they passing the salt? You know, how you'd have to, little packet going, drugs, you know, and pose for it. No matter how brilliant your photographic skills, you're not going to be able to determine that it's actually heroin. It could be a sachet of sugar, for God's sake. You know, I don't know what it was, I hasten to add. You know, I'm not suggesting that Edinburgh Academy boys would ever, I mean, they didn't know anything about sex, so they certainly shouldn't know about drugs. But, you know, I said, do nothing at all. They then attempted to get a court injunction, and the Mail on Sunday ran a story that said, the paper that cannot be gagged. Even when we don't know what it is they're trying to gag us about. The story was a non-story and became a story because they reacted to it. And I mean, with something like that, you leave it, you let it play, you let it run. And if it's bad, then you come back with your counter-offensive because you don't know what they've got. All we've got is speculation, panic, rumour. There was no photograph, there was no substance. So they effectively went to the courts and said, they were attempting to say our boys were passing drugs in a cafe in Stockbridge, and all of that got into the paper. Brilliant. Total own goal. And therefore, because they didn't adhere to our advice, they were a wee bit resentful of us. So, you know, I think the writing was on the wall, and the sex scandal just destroyed the whole gig. There you go. Obviously, I wasn't cut out to work for elite establishments in Edinburgh. I only worked for the RIS.
And what did you think of your 4 years, and what do you project into the future?
Ooh, that's not what I was here to talk about. I'm very confident about the potential of the incorporation. I know that life is shit at the moment as far as most architects are concerned. The commissioning climate has never been worse. Our politicians, too many of them, have little or no engagement and understanding with what architects and creative people actually deliver. Some of them do, and they're very good, and they're in there, and they're working for us. But I think the potential of the incorporation to actually be there as a lobbying organisation, just needle away. And I also think, I mean, it has taken 4 years because you only get that much budget. And this is a lesson from years ago that Pat Lally, when he came back into power in the city of Glasgow, I was talking to him after the event when I helped him write his autobiography. And he said, of course, what people don't realise is they say, you know, the city's budget is £10 million or £10 billion. Marvellous, what you do anything with £10 billion. And he said, you've got 3% of the city's budget in any given year that you can actually use to do anything. Everything else is spent before you even begin. So you're providing roads, you're providing school teachers, you're doing all the stuff that local authorities do and have to deliver. You've got a large staff who have to be paid to do their jobs to help deliver all this, and so on and so on and so on. So you get 3%. Now, historically, what they did in the city of Glasgow with 3%, as most local authorities did at that time, was they had big marketing campaigns, and Mr. Smiley, and Edinburgh, what was Count Me In, that was a good one. So you got all that sort of stuff. And Pat said, no, we'll just spend that 3% on the arts. We'll spend it on culture. We'll, it becomes a big sum if you are saying to a performing arts organisation, we will give you £100,000 or £250,000 to come and do the Mahabharata in Glasgow. And people say, that's mental, it's wasting all this money that could be spent on big posters. But effectively, you then get all the public relations on the back of that, and it's 100 times what you would ever get off just spending it on straight marketing and the big poster campaigns. So essentially, that was the small lesson that Pat said, you've got the 3%. So the RIS, its money is very circumscribed, particularly at the moment. We are trying our damnedest to maintain frontline services for the members. We've got we've got an increasing number of members, which is great. It's not a huge increase each year, but year on year, marginal increases, which is positive. But we've got a reducing subscription level because a lot of people are having really tough times and are on reduced subs, and that's quite right, that's part of the member support that should be there. So you